civil society, you empower your societies to succeed. You are the lifeblood, the lifeblood. No man can survive without the blood coursing through his veins, and no democracy can survive and thrive without the active participation of its citizens. It's that simple. We had an American president named Thomas Jefferson. He said that if you want a society to be intelligent and free, it has to be informed. No society can function without being informed. But a civil society cannot exist, it cannot function absent certain basic underlying rights that are recognized by their government. They are universal rights. The freedom of expression, the freedom to express yourself, the freedom of association, the freedom to gather with whomever you wish to gather, and the freedom of assembly, to publicly assemble, to make clear the grievances and concerns of the people. These are universal and inseparable from democracy itself, in my view. And that's not just true in Africa. Around the world, nation-states, as they emerge, are dealing with the same kinds of issues, from fighting corruption to preventing economic favoritism, to creating effective systems, for the collection of revenue and equal and equitable distribution of services to all the people. No two societies, to state the obvious, are exactly the same. But in the 21st century, there are a clear set of rules that, in fact, are required to be followed in order to succeed. It's not possible to succeed for your people unless they have a chance to shape the policies of their government, identify problems and root out injustices, and find ways for groups to resolve their differences peacefully, to start businesses to help your economies grow. And lastly, but in my view, maybe the most important, is to draw on the talents of all of your people, including women and girls. It's a waste. It's a waste. Famous columnist here in the United States said, women are half the sky. They are half the sky. But seriously, I'm not being, those of you who know anything about my career, you know I mean this with every fiber of my being. It's wasting half the initiative, half of the brain power, half of the passion of a nation. And all of you know, in this room, this is more easily said than done, all of those things. But that's where you come in, members of civil society. Democracy has taken root. I've been a senator for a long time. I used to be the chairman of what we call the Foreign Relations Committee. When I was a young man at age 30, I was chairman of the, I guess it was 32, chairman of the African Affairs Subcommittee. It was the first time as a young man I became deeply acquainted with the African continent. The realization, by the way, it's so much bigger. So much bigger. It's amazing. And I imagine it must bother you all when you say, oh, you're from Africa. Oh, I know where you live. You're from Africa. But it was something that captured my imagination and captured my heart. And I believed from the outset of my acquaintance, the possibilities are immense. They're immense. And democracy has taken root. And it's trying to grow. It's trying to flourish in places where it's very difficult. But as it does, there are forces rising up on the continent trying to stop it. In some countries, there's there's still an effort to monopolize power, aims to muzzle civil society by constructing barriers and constricting the freedom to give it voice. I know it's hard out there. In some places, you're the subject of harassment, intimidation, arrest, even violence as a consequence of your efforts.
Come on.
Now look, I'm not one of those folks who come to America and say, by the way, we have all the answers. Let me just share them with you. The truth of the matter is, America doesn't have all the answers. And to state the obvious, which is clear to you and the world, we are not perfect. Far from it. But we've worked with many of you for several decades now. There's been progress made, but there's so very much more to do. And we think it's absolutely essential that you be able to have transparent institutions, be able to push back against restrictions on rights and freedoms, and have that emergency aid when civil society is most under duress and threat. That's why President Obama has promoted programs, many of them, but to name a few, the Open Government Partnership, the Community of Democracies, and the Civil Society Lifeline Fund, as well as other initiatives we've worked with you on. One other thing, though, has changed. Even as some governments work to restrict civil society, others are beginning to recognize more instinctively the need for and what a great asset civil society can be. Because any wise leader can see that civil society is an asset to solve problems and seize opportunities. And there are many problems that are left over from everything from colonialism to dictatorships. There are many problems that are left over. It can only ultimately be solved by people deciding it's worth solving. In that respect, I'm particularly pleased that there are government ministers here and heads of state. Because together, both the governments and civil society can assure that this dialogue and the ideas expressed here today and for the next several days inform the conversation that the leaders are going to be having in the days ahead. There's an old proverb said to emanate from Africa that goes like this: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Well, there is no time when that is more true than today. We're prepared to go with you if you want us to. One problem in particular, though, demands the attention of both government and civil society. And it demands it now. Not only in Africa, but in Eastern Europe, in the Middle East, in Latin America, in Central America. And that is the rise of a new tool that is designed to thwart democratic institutions. It's called corruption. Corruption and oligarchs. Corruption, as I said, is not unique to Africa, but it's a cancer. It's a cancer in Africa as well as around the world. Widespread corruption is an affront to the dignity of its people and a direct threat to each of your nation's stability, all nations' stability. It not only undermines, but prevents the establishment of genuine democratic systems. It stifles economic growth and scares away investment. It siphons off resources that should be used to lift people out of poverty. weakens, to the core, it weakens your military readiness. It creates vulnerabilities to foreign manipulation and interference. But in order to take on this challenge of corruption, there are certain things other nations have learned and are still struggling with. There are certain basic things that are required to have a democracy, certain things required to be free of wholesale corruption. The first and foremost, and you know how difficult it is to establish, even in countries where it's been established, and to maintain, is a court system. A court system that is transparent, where the judges are vetted, and where judges who are accountable to the people. That's hard. It's hard in every single system. But without it, not much else matters. The second thing, there's a need for security and law enforcement to be beholden to no one but the people, to be vetted, to root out corruption before they have the job, and to continually, as exists here in the United States, continually have independent eyes, not responsible to those who run the police departments, able to go in and internally investigate any allegations that exist. It exists here in the United States. One of our major police departments, one of our major cities, just an internal investigation found that there were alleged that there were 4 or 5 high-ranking law enforcement officers in one of our major cities that were making millions of dollars, stealing as well as working with drug operations. The fact of the matter is, it's the only way you can move. There also is a need. There's also a need to have in every government agency what we in the United States call, and it can be different in every country, we call an inspector general. Someone who's able to roam through every department, like here in the United States, the Defense Department, the IRS, the Treasury Department writ large, the Department of Interior, to be able to look at the books, to be able to look at everything that's transpired with independent eyes, people who cannot be fired. Every country that has a vibrant democracy and has a minimum amount of corruption has a system like that. That's how you stop illicit finance. That's how you build transparent institutions. And that's how you strengthen the rule of law. We have a great deal of experience in seeking, being asked for help in other countries. For example, a thing called Planned Colombia, the country of Colombia, was on the verge of becoming a narco state a decade ago. They asked us to come down and say, how do you determine whether your police forces are corrupt? What methods do you use to choose? How do you administer lie detection? What do you do? And we, at their request, helped them vet well over 5,000 of their police officers. That's how they ended the Medellin cartel and the Cali cartel. You don't have to use us. But those where there's a problem, there's a need, there's a method to be able to determine whether or not you have a law enforcement system that's accountable to the people. And again, that's where all of you come in. For you really are the voices of the people in addition to the elected officials. You have to demand these things. To the extent you want our help, we will stand with you. We will support you. Again, we're not perfect. But an example of what we do is that we have these systems, and we tend to find out where the corruption lies and eventually get to it. So we're prepared to work with you, as Transparency Initiative, or the Open Government Partnership, or other initiatives to fight corruption. Because it is the cancer. It eats away any credibility of a democracy. And we know, you know, it's very hard work. And in some places, it is very dangerous work. It takes a lot of commitment, foresight, and courage, which is represented in this room by all of you who have been there and are here today. You're conscientious. You're totally committed to promoting universal rights and freedom, the freedom to speak, to associate, to assemble. So there's so much at stake, but the opportunities are so vast. We're in the cusp of a continent of Africa establishes its place among the ranks of the world's most prosperous economies and free nations. In your hands, with your help, Africa can and will go so much further. We have the fastest growing economies in the world. And quite frankly, the success of the rest of the world depends on part on your success. On your success. As I said, the people like all of you assembled in this room, I'm confident, as hard as it is, I'm confident you will be successful. Thank you for the honor of voting.